President Trump set to pull thousands more troops from Iraq and Afghanistan, cutting the troop presence in both those countries to about in half, down to 3,000 troops in Iraq and in Afghanistan down to 4,500, as the president pushes to make good on his campaign promise to break the cycle of endless wars. Now, there are thousands more still in terms of troops presence in the Middle East. We got that story covered for you tonight. This as President Trump has been nominated for the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize, again, just weeks after helping to broker peace between Israel and the UAE, and days after Serbia and Kosovo signed an economic normalization agreement in an Oval Office ceremony. Let's welcome White House Deputy Press Secretary Brian Morgenstern with us in a Fox Business exclusive. Brian, it's always great to have you on the show. Your reaction? Israel is going to join the UAE at a White House ceremony next week to sign the peace agreement. Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, this is really monumental. This is terrific. The fact that it's the first major breakthrough in 26 years with Israel normalizing with an Arab state, the UAE. It's a really great roadmap that other countries will follow. We just had another great announcement that flights to Israel will be able to proceed through Saudi airspace. That's a really wonderful gesture. We're very enthusiastic about that. The Kosovo-Serbia agreement, I mean, 21 years in the making. It just shows that the president doesn't subscribe to the Washington conventional wisdom, and that's a good thing because it gets results. We are seeing a more peaceful world. And of course, on the heels of what you just mentioned, Elizabeth, that we are drawing down troops, and the Pentagon has made very clear that that is based on conditions on the ground and that we are not sacrificing security. We are, in fact, taking American troops out of harm's way, but we are really working towards a more peaceful world in the Middle East and elsewhere all around the globe.
Yeah. There's still 14,000 troops in the Middle East for places, for regions and hotspots like Syria, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's still the case, correct?
Of course. Again, this is about on-the-ground conditions, maintaining security, making sure that that terrorists are, of course, not allowed to operate, that they're not allowed to create more hotbeds. The caliphate, of course, has been destroyed. We are guided by on-the-ground conditions, but we do want to do everything we can to take American troops out of harm's way as much as that is appropriate, where we can still maintain security.
Okay, Christian Tybring-Gjedde, he's a member of the Norwegian parliament. He nominated the president. He said he's not a big Trump supporter. He thinks Trump has done more for peace between nations than other Peace Prize nominees, saying, quote, judge him on the facts, not on the way he behaves. Your response to that?
Well, my response is that President Trump is deserving of this nomination because of what we just discussed. The landmark deals, the Israel-UAE deal, really a fantastic development, the first major development of its kind in 26 years. The Serbia-Kosovo deal, 21 years in the making. I mean, the president's getting really tremendous results and leading to a more peaceful world. So the nomination, of course, is an honor. Very well deserved. The president's very pleased to see it, and yeah. as he stated, you know, President Obama was nominated basically just for being elected president. President Trump was nominated for getting results, and I think that's a really important distinction.
Yeah, this Norwegian lawmaker, he's saying that essentially Barack Obama got it after just 9 months on the job. Lech Walesa, the leader of the Solidarity movement in Poland, also saying it was too soon for President Obama to win. The media is undercutting the president's nomination here, saying that this Norwegian parliamentarian is a member of the right-wing Progress Party. But he is citing the president's key role in protracted conflicts, like the border dispute between India and Pakistan, moving on to North and South Korea, the nuclear capabilities of North Korea, and again, withdrawing large number of troops from the Middle East. He's saying that, you know, this is sort of like Jimmy Carter breaking a nearly 4-decade run of presidents involving the U.S. in overseas conflicts. So now maybe Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan, you know, there could be other countries following the UAE. What's the talk about that there in Washington?
Yeah, we're very optimistic about that. And again, this nomination is because of the president's results. And as I think the White House has stated, Jared Kushner, the president himself, and others, this is a really great development that should be a roadmap to other countries normalizing relations with one another, especially with Israel. And, this is about bringing security and prosperity to the American people, but also to our allies and other countries around the world, leading to more opportunities for deals, for peace, for economic cooperation, because we want more jobs, more opportunities, again, not just for the American people, but for our allies as well. And so that's why the president's nominated. It's about results, the results that he's getting, that people are seeing, that's leading to more optimism, I think, in the Middle East region in particular than we've seen in quite a long time.
Brian, what's the administration reaction to a top general, the Army's most senior officer? He's Army Chief of Staff General James McConville. He pushed back on President Trump's assertions that the Defense Department leaders there and the Pentagon choose to continue fighting wars abroad in an attempt to keep private defense firms, quote, happy. General McConville said that senior leaders only recommend sending troops to combat when it's required as national security or as a last resort. What's the administration's response to General McConville here?
Look, the president's not trying to single out any individual and question their motives. There is an issue of the military-industrial complex, which was pointed out as early as President Eisenhower. And of course, over the last 30 years, we've had wars, engagement by every single president. President Trump has changed the tide in reducing military conflict, in reducing the risks to American lives in our armed forces. He values those lives, of course, and he wants to eliminate threats from the planet, like we've seen with al-Baghdadi, like we've seen with Soleimani. He will not hesitate to use force when necessary, but this is about protecting American lives and American troops.
All right, Brian Morgenstern, it's always great to have you on the show. Come back soon, okay? It's great to see you.
Thanks, Liz. Good to see you, too. Thanks for having me.